After a standard rotation, new sets tend to have a massive impact. Duskmourn is no exception. This video ranks the top 10 best decks to conquer the standard meta.
Victory!
At 10th place, we have Azorius Auras, a tempo deck built around enchantments and auras to protect your creatures while growing them into large threats. Azorius Auras focuses on cheap auras and enchantment creatures to quickly build up a strong board and generate card advantage. Ethereal Armor is a key card rewarding you for casting multiple enchantments by making your creatures grow stronger with each one. Enduring Innocence ensures you don't run out of gas, letting you draw cards whenever you play creatures with power 2 or less. To protect your key creatures, cards like Phaelite and Shard Mage's Rescue give them hexproof. Meanwhile, Inquisitive Glimmer and Gremlin Tamer add synergy with your enchantments, creating value with each play. Azorius Auras excels at building an overwhelming board while maintaining card advantage, but it can struggle against decks that remove your creatures before you can protect them. Azorius Auras is perfect for players who love growing their creatures into unstoppable forces while controlling the pace of the game. At 9th place, we have Dimir Midrange, a deck that leans into some controlling elements while maintaining a solid mid-range presence. Dimir Midrange combines efficient removal, disruptive creatures, and value engines to control the board while generating long-term card advantage. Early game threats like Fairy Mastermind and Spyglass Siren help you to establish control, while Deep Cavern Bat adds hand disruption, flying, and lifelink to help neutralise aggressive decks. One of the key value engines is Enduring Curiosity, which rewards you with card draw whenever you deal combat damage. Even if it hits the graveyard, it can return as an enchantment, giving you even more value. The deck also boasts an efficient removal suite with cards like Go for the Throat and Cut Down, allowing you to handle opposing threats and set up favourable board states. Dimir Midrange excels at controlling the board and generating incremental value over time, but it can struggle against fast, aggressive decks that overwhelm its early defences. Dimir Midrange is perfect for players who love grinding out long games while maintaining a strong control presence on the board. At 8th place, we have Bant Control, a resilient and versatile control deck that excels at controlling the board and securing the late game with massive threats. Bant Control focuses on board control through powerful removal spells while setting up for the late game with huge threats. Key cards like Leyline Binding and Get Lost keep your opponent's key threats off the board, while Up the Beanstalk provides consistent card advantage. The Overlords help trigger Up the Beanstalk early and provide massive threats later in the game. Flood Pits gives you card filtering to ensure you hit your land drops, and Hauntwoods creates land tokens to bolster your mana base. Sunfall is your go-to board wipe, exiling all creatures and resetting the battlefield, which is perfect for this control strategy. Bant Control excels at ball control and playing long games, but it can struggle against aggressive strategies if it doesn't find its early removal. Bant Control is perfect for players who love controlling the board and grinding out value in long, drawn-out games. At 7th place, we have Golgari Midrange, a resilient and grindy mid-range deck that excels at controlling the battlefield and generating long-term value. Golgari Midrange plays a balanced game of attrition, focusing on efficient removal, card advantage, and large threats. Cards like Sheoldred and Archfiend of the Dross put constant pressure on your opponent's life total, whilst Glisser provides additional value by removing enchantments or drawing extra cards. The deck's removal suite, featuring Cut Down, Go for the Throat, and Liliana of the Veil, allows you to control the battlefield, taking out key threats efficiently. Early game value creatures like Mosswood Dread Knight establish presence, while Restless Cottage adds extra pressure as the game goes long. Golgari Midrange excels at controlling the board and generating consistent value over time, but it can struggle against decks that go over the top or combo off quickly. Golgari Midrange is perfect for players who love grinding out long games with efficient removal and powerful card advantage. We're halfway in at 6th place. We have Orzhov Midrange, a resilient mid-range deck that thrives on value generation and board control. Orzhov Midrange focuses on generating value through powerful creatures and controlling the board with disruptive spells. Liliana of the Veil and Preacher of the Schism apply consistent pressure while giving you card advantage, and Sheoldred and Zoraline help you to stabilise and turn the game in your favour. The deck also shines in recurring threats with cards like Virtue of Persistence, letting you bring back key creatures and keep the pressure on. With a versatile removal suite featuring Go for the Throat and Cut Down, Orzhov Midrange excels at handling both creature heavy and control matchups. Orzhov Midrange excels at grinding out value and gaining incremental advantages throughout the game, but it can sometimes struggle against faster aggressive decks. Orzhov Midrange is perfect for players who love grinding out the long games, controlling the board and keeping consistent pressure on their opponents. At 5th place, we have 4-Color Domain, a powerful mid-range deck that leverages the raw power of multicolored spells and massive creatures to dominate the late game. Domain is all about using expensive creatures and value-packed spells to overwhelm your opponent. Cards like Atraxa and Archangel of Wrath provide huge threats that take over the game, while Leyline Binding offers excellent removal thanks to its domain-based cost reduction. The deck ramps efficiently with tools like Overlord of the Hauntwoods, which helps with mana fixing early and becomes a late game threat. Up the Beanstalk provides consistent card advantage, and Sunfall acts as a board wipe to control your opponent's creatures. Combine this with Get Lost and Temporary Lockdown for early game control, and Domain becomes nearly unbeatable once it hits the mid to late game. Domain excels at generating value and casting powerful multicolored spells, but it can struggle when Domain enablers are disrupted or slow to develop. Domain is perfect for players who love casting big multicolored spells and controlling the battlefield with massive creatures and value-packed removal. We officially passed the halfway point, and at 4th place we have Mono Black Midrange, a relentless control deck designed to suffocate your opponent's resources and dominate the battlefield. Mono Black Midrange grinds out value over time using efficient removal and powerful threats to control the game. Liliana of the Veil and Go for the Throat keep your opponent's board clear, while Deep Cavern Back attacks their hand, stripping them of options. Synergies between Overlord of the Baelmerk and recursive threats like Unstoppable Slasher ensure constant pressure, creating a cycle of threats your opponent can't keep up with. Bloodletter can close games fast, especially when paired with life-draining effects. And to top it all off, Withering Torment makes it impossible for your opponents to safely play anything on the board. Mono Black Midrange shines in resource denial and consistent battlefield control, but it struggles against faster decks if it can't stabilise in time. Mono Black Midrange is perfect for players who enjoy dismantling their opponent's strategies piece by piece, while draining away their life total with relentless precision. At 3rd place, we have Azorius Tempo, a deck that excels at controlling the pace of the game while applying consistent pressure on your opponents with evasive threats. Azorius Tempo combines efficient spells and low-cost threats to keep your opponent on the back foot. Cards like the Djinn and Picklock Prankster create early pressure, while Abhorrent Oculus is an evasive threat that continues to provide even more threats every time it's your opponent's turn. The deck's key to success lies in its tempo spells like Sleight of Hand and Chart of Course, which allow you to dig through your deck and maintain card advantage. Helping Hand and Into the Floodmoor add even more versatility, letting you either bolster your board or stifle your opponent's key plays. Azorius Tempo can shift gears quickly with Recommission and 3 steps ahead, turning the tide by returning threats and ensuring you're always one step ahead of your opponent. Add in Moment of Truth for filtering and Soul Partition for flexible disruption, and this deck is set to control the game while swinging in for lethal damage. Azorius Tempo is all about controlling the tempo while gaining incremental advantage, but it can struggle if you lose momentum early. Azorius Tempo is perfect for players who love controlling the pace of the game while maintaining constant pressure with tricky, evasive creatures and disruptive spells. This week's second best deck at 2nd place, Gruul Prowess, an aggressive deck that thrives on explosive spell synergies to overwhelm your opponents before they have a chance to stabilise. Gruul Prowess focuses on quick and relentless attacks, leveraging low-cost creatures and pump spells to turn small threats into game-ending powerhouses. At its core, Monastery Swiftspear, a 1-drop with prowess that rapidly grows out of control when paired with spells like Might of the Meek and Turn Inside Out. Cacophony Scamp and Emberheart Challenger are your aggressive early threats, pushing damage while gaining synergy with your spells. Heartfire Hero adds resilience to your attacks, letting you turn combat into an even bigger advantage. This deck doesn't stop at just hitting hard though. It backs up the pressure with protection through Snakeskin Veil and the powerful pump of Witch's Mark. One of the deck's standout pieces is Leyline of Resonance, a card that enhances your spell strategy by doubling the effectiveness of your pump spells, making even your smallest creatures terrifying threats. Gruul Prowess excels at applying fast, lethal pressure and taking advantage of prowess triggers, but it can struggle against heavier removal or stumble if the early pressure fizzles. Gruul Prowess is perfect for players who love racing through the game with fast, explosive creatures and massive damage from spell synergies. Fun bonus deck before our best deck, we have Simic Cookies, a sweet yet deceptively dangerous aggro strategy. Who knew cookies could be so dangerous? Simic Cookies is all about mixing aggression with clever synergies, using artifact creatures and food tokens to outmaneuver your opponent. At the heart of the deck is Tough Cookie, which not only pumps your creatures but also makes food tokens to fuel your board. Teething Wormlet quickly grows as your artifact count rise, and cards like Ginger Brute provides evasive threats that are hard to block. Meanwhile, Agatha's Soul Cauldron lets you leverage your graveyard in creative ways, empowering your creatures with extra abilities, making even your food tokens dangerous. Throw in the utility of Spyglass Siren and Surge Engine, and you have a deck that's packed with versatility. Plus, don't underestimate Zoetic Glyph. It can quickly boost your creatures into formidable threats. Simic Cookie serves up aggressive play with a side of artifact synergy. But like any sweet treat, this deck can be a bit brittle if not managed carefully. Simic Cookies is perfect for players who love combining artifact synergies with aggressive gameplay and don't mind sneaking in a few snacks along the way. The very best deck we have in first place is Mono White Tokens, a powerful mid-range deck that floods the board with creature tokens to close out games. Mono White Tokens excels at generating a massive board presence whilst using control elements to keep your opponent in check. Cards like Beza and Caretaker's Talent allow you to build up a wide board of tokens, creating an army that's difficult for your opponent to deal with. Once your tokens are established, Archangel Elspeth and Sanguine Evangelist help boost their power and grant them additional effects, letting you overwhelm the opponent. Meanwhile, Sunfall acts as a powerful board wipe that exiles all creatures, but importantly, it leaves behind incubate tokens for you to convert into threats later. Add to your control, Lay Down Arms and Soul Petition provide efficient removal to ensure your opponent's threats don't stick around. Combine that with Get Lost for disruption, and then this deck is designed to maintain pressure and outlast even the toughest opponents. Mono White Tokens thrives on flooding the board with resilient threats and removal to back it up, but it can struggle in certain matchups if it can't maintain token production. Mono White Tokens is perfect for players who love building an overwhelming army of tokens and using removal spells to maintain control over the battlefield. Personally, I'm playing Golgari Midrange, but I'd love to know what you're playing, so drop a comment below and don't forget to subscribe.